Okay, so before we kind of delve in, I wanted to give you a little bit more about, tell you a little bit more about me, and then my wife Andrea is going to introduce herself. But first off, I want to say welcome to my grandmother. She's a retired math teacher. She lives in Sacramento, and she wanted to come to the call. So if you have any questions for a retired math teacher, yeah, she's awesome. I'm hearing them from downstairs. So we have a kindergartner and a third grader. Yeah, Andrea's on kid duty at the moment. And we've been at BFPP for 3 years now, and it's been awesome. And so there's kind of like a spectrum with homeschooling. There's not like one way to do it, basically. So and like this is just one dimension of it, is kind of like the homeschooling, like the unschooling is like totally unstructured and like just let the kids do whatever they want. And then there's the other end of the spectrum, which is more like really structured, having curriculums, having workbooks and like all that stuff, and really having a structure to it. I'm pretty close to the unschooling end of the spectrum. My wife is a little bit further on the curriculum side, having educational background. But that's kind of where we're coming at this from. I like to say I'm a full-time dad and a part-time computer programmer. And then if you want to introduce yourself, Andrea.
Hello. Yeah, I would say like being on different ends of the spectrum, sometimes, we come about things very differently, but I will say that Josh has won me over quite a bit in towards more of the unschooling as I've watched our kids um, clearly learning so much. Somehow it feels like, despite the fact that I don't feel like I'm doing all that much all that often, they seem to clearly it's working because they're learning a lot. So I work full time as a synagogue Jewish school director and also the cantor for the synagogue. And I see myself, whereas Josh is full time dad and part time computer programmer. Sometimes I feel like I'm more in the full time work and part time parenting, but we try to balance out. But yeah, I definitely had always wanted to do homeschooling, having gone through the training to be a teacher and going through the education world and being kind of, I don't know, once I finished my student teaching, disillusioned with how much we were really able to do for kids in that environment and structure. It was really challenging. So I was excited that before we ever had kids, we were both on board with the homeschooling idea. And it's not without its challenges, but it's been also a real blessing to have them home, and also a lot easier pivot during the pandemic world. So there is that silver lining of we just kept doing what we'd always been doing. So it's great to see you all and welcome. Yeah.
So I just wanted to give a brief introduction to what game schooling is, and then I have another game to play because it's a game schooling workshop. Okay, so game schooling is just learning with your kids by playing games. That's like the simplest definition. I actually learned about it at BFPP when we were in person, and there was a parent talking about game schooling, and I was like, "What? Like you could do that? That's a thing?" And I was super excited about it, and we've given it more focus, especially now that we're like stuck at home, and it's been awesome. And I've got some examples of kind of some of the things that have worked well for us coming up, and the most important thing for us is just that it's fun. That like, um, it's not a game if you're not having fun, basically. Okay, so speaking of that, here is the game. Okay, so I've never tried this before on Zoom, and we'll see how it works. We're gonna try to collectively count down from 5 to 1. Um, the rule is, you might have done this in person before. It's like an improv game. If two people talk over each other, then you have to start over. So we're just gonna try it for a minute and see how it goes. Are we good?
Should we all unmute?
Yes, everyone has to unmute. If you want to play, you have to unmute. Okay.
5,
4, 3, 2,
One.
1.
Oh,
So close.
so close.
5.
4.
Ah,
5.
4.
3.
2, 1.
We got it.
Boom.
Woohoo. So I think the key thing for homeschooling, and this was designed to be a demonstration of that, is that games are a safe place to fail. That and the way that we learn is through failing. Like that is really, and I don't think that's something that gets enough emphasis in most schools. But games are really a great way to fail and to learn how to fail, and to learn from failing. And so that we were a little bit too successful, but I don't know, somehow maybe Zoom makes it easier. I don't know, but you guys are just awesome. Okay, so another piece about game schooling is I think that it's easy for us as parents to put a lot of pressure on ourselves to to have all the answers, to have like a full map, a plan, a curriculum, and know like all, my kid needs to know X, Y, and Z by like this grade or whatever. But the truth is that kids are constantly learning. Like you can't stop them from learning. And a great way to spend time with your kids is to play games with them. And there's so much that we can learn by playing games, both as adults and as children. Another piece that's interesting is it can be a motivation tool. Like our youngest son, who's 5, I said, like, you can't play Ticket to Ride until you can read, because you have to like be able to read the names of the cities. And like the next day he was like, I want to learn to read. Like it was this big motivation for him, because he needed to read to be able to play the game. And the other thing is that there's so much things that you learn just because it's part of the game. So an example of that is we've been playing Settlers of Catan a lot, and our 5-year-old, like, he learned how to add up 2 numbers because you have to roll 2 dice and you have to know what the 2 dice add up to. And like it just happened. Like he just, he was really into it, and he's now really good at adding, like, as long as the number's under 7, he can add 2 numbers really well. Yeah. So, and it's super fun and sweet to spend time playing games as a family. I also wanted to put this in earlier, but if anybody has questions or wants comments or whatever and wants to interject, like, feel free. So I'll pause for 1 second if Andrea or anyone else has something to add to that.
I'll just add, I'm sort of here bringing the, like, I was skeptical of unschooling, kind of more like free form way. I was trained to create lesson plans and have curriculum and have a plan and a goal for where I was taking the kids. And so one thing that I have been joyfully surprised about is all those things where we were learning and we didn't even realize they were learning until it had happened, or we were already 5 steps beyond it. And then you kind of take a step back and you're like, oh my gosh, our kids are doing, all these different things. And so it's like we're playing, we're not thinking of it as schooling. And I think someone put in the chat earlier, like, we were already game schooling without calling it that. It's like, yeah, we just like playing games, so we pull out lots of games. And it wasn't until later we're like, oh, this is actually part of our homeschooling plan. Like this is a thing. So that's been really fun. This sort of happened on accident, I think, more for us. And it's been really, really cool to watch.
Yeah, and thanks for all the stuff people are sharing in the chat too. We played Tokaido, it was cool. And yeah, in role-playing games, we've got a couple. I don't know if people saw there's a Google Doc I sent out. I'll put it in the chat in a minute. But it's got like a list of games that we've enjoyed. And I have something to add to that too that I forgot to do because I was scrambling earlier. Okay, so so one of the questions that somebody wrote to me was, I'd love to play more games, but I can't really find the time. So in that Google Doc, there's a list, and I'm just going to kind of read through it as inspiration. One thing that's awesome if you do have more than one child is that find games that they can play together. And that's been really sweet. Like our kids play card games, or they'll play like we have Wildcraft, which is like a cooperative Candyland kind of game. So just like letting the kids play games together is super awesome. Another thing is like our youngest son, he plays solitaire. I have this really old, it's actually from my grandmother, a card game book, like a book of family games. And there was a solitaire game where you basically like, I think you like deal out 4 cards and you try to match them, or maybe I think it's more than 4, but you try to match them so they add up to 13. And so he just like he played this, he loved it because he loves games so much, but like we're not able to like give time to always play games with him. So he was so excited to be able to play a game by himself. And just the other day he like sat down on the couch and like played solitaire. And so yeah, you match the numbers to add to 13. And that's it. And then you can do different numbers, 15, 17, whatever. Yeah, sure, yeah, Zoom works too. Oh, got a question. Go for it.
How do you handle when your kids don't like to lose games?
I was going to say that to the end, but I can do it now. That's a great question. There are, on one of the websites, there's a list of books that talk about that. One thing, a really simple thing that we've been doing is whoever wins has to clean up the game. So it kind of like it tempers that a little bit. It's like, oh, I won. Oh, good, I have to clean up. It's like, or it's like I lost, but I don't have to clean up. It kind of like it tempers that a little bit. But I think I think partly there's a certain amount of temperament there. Like we have one child he's the younger one. He's like, I got 7 points. I have 7 points. Like he's so excited, even though he's like totally in last place. And the other one who can be a sore loser at times. But I think also just playing games, that just the more you play, the less big of a deal it can be. And cooperative games too.
Who loves to play games, but is very competitive, and I don't know where that came from, but she does not like to lose. So that kind of like puts an end to a game sometime in not the most fun fashion.
Yeah, it can be frustrating.
I'll add to that because we are a pretty competitive family in our games, and actually I think it can make it more fun. Because when nobody really cares, it takes away that edge and excitement of who's going to win. So we're pretty competitive. And I will add that Josh and I do not let our children win ever. Like we're kind of hard. Like sometimes when they miss a strategic move, we'll monopolize on that and like take their pieces or, so we're not ones to sort of ease up on them just because they're younger. But one thing we really try to do, and I think we took this cue from Evan, who was always so excited at whatever he had done, even if he was in last place, to be like, oh, wow, you got that piece, or, oh, you have 10 points, and sort of highlighting the successes, even if the ultimate end of the game is loss. But again, like Josh said, and what you're talking, a lot of it is temperament, and sometimes that is going to happen, at times, and it's okay. And I think that's a really helpful lesson for them to learn, that, you can lose and it's okay. And there'll be another game, but that's a tough one. Yeah.
And someone said cooperative games, they're really great. The first time I learned about like cooperative games, I was like, what? You could have a game where everyone is playing together? Like, how does that work? But there's a lot of them out there now, and some of them are pretty awesome. One of them that's on the list, I really like the game. Our older son won't play it because it's called Pandemic, but it's actually an awesome game. And we literally played it a year ago, like a week before everything shut down. We saved the world. But yeah, so cooperative games are another thing. Fox is good. You used to put Pandemic. Cool. Anything else while we're paused? Okay, so another thing that's been awesome for us is, so we're Jewish, and so I actually like 25 hours every week. I'm totally unplugged. And like this, you don't have to go that far, but it's really awesome to like not have email and texts and everything. Like it's just I'm offline for one day. So even if you can carve out 20 minutes or a couple hours, like make it part of your regular schedule where you just turn off all the devices and everyone just spends time together. I mean, that's an awesome gift for everybody, basically. Another thing is like just set a timer, so like you don't have to finish the game or whatever. You just say like we're going to play for 20 minutes or whatever time you have. Or you can make a reward if they like get their cleanups or their chores done early. You're like, okay, we have we're reading books at 6:30, so however soon cleanup's done, we'll play games when you guys are ready. Doesn't usually work for our boys, but sometimes it does. And then um, let's see. Try games that can be spread out over multiple days. So I mean, like we played Settlers of Catan. It's like, I don't know, like a 2-hour game. It took us a week to get through the whole thing. Maybe there's better games for doing that, but it can be a fun thing to kind of have longer games that you do in short little stints. And also like you can do like verbal games like 20 questions or something like that while either one of you is doing something else. So like, if I'm cooking dinner or something, and we can play a game with the boys at the same time. And also to make more time for yourself, get your kids doing chores. That's homeschooling too. Learning to cook and clean and all that stuff, like that's an important part of homeschooling if you ask me. And then it takes a little bit off your plate. Yeah, it's the best when our older son is like, I'm cooking dinner, and I'm like, all right. and there's a little bit of a like it at the beginning, it's more effort because they make a big mess, and it's just like you have to kind of oversee them. But once you put in the time and get them like so now he's almost 9, but like almost every week he makes pancakes, like just totally makes pancakes, and it's awesome. Yeah, it's really, really nice. That's what I have for that piece. Any questions or comments? Okay, so how do we game school? That's another part of what we're talking about. The type of games that have worked best for us are stuff that you actually enjoy. And there are so many like cheap or free games you can get off the internet, either like download, print them out, or just like card games. Another piece of that is making your own games. That's kind of like the next level. But our kids just like randomly make games. I have no idea. Like we've never actually like been able to play any of their games, but they have a lot of fun making them. Yeah.
I've tried to understand Evan's game called Boo. We roll the dice and it does something that he understands and he moves the parts, but I don't really understand what's going on. But he still has a blast.
I think I saw a hand up. No? Okay. Yeah, we talked about cooperative games. One thing that's nice about cooperative games is that they can be good for if you have different age kids, because you're all kind of working together. And then one thing that's nice to do is like think about ways that you can adapt games for younger kids. You can like, simplify the rules or make it a shorter target. But one thing I caution you is to not underestimate them. Yeah, kids will rise to the level of expectations. So let them try. Like we have a game we play. I think it's Settlers of Catan. Evan loves it. He's like 5.5, and like he can't read yet, but he knows like all the pictures on the cards, so he knows what they do. So like we played it a couple times where he was on a team with somebody else that could like read the card and tell him what it is, and now he just knows what the cards are, and so he can play it even though he can't actually read the cards. Yeah. And then one kind of thing that we have not had success with is like quote unquote educational games. They just mostly are not fun. And it's like, if you're going to play a game, you should have fun. But if it's like, if the game's not fun, you're not actually like, well, you're not going to play it. You're not going to learn anything from a game that's sitting in your closet, basically. And we've got a bunch of them in our closet because we try.
Yeah, I wanted to give an example. So
Yeah.
we have this one called Science Bingo that was given to us as a gift. Very sweet, and we've played it, 5 or 6 times. There's nothing wrong with bingo in itself; is great. But basically, it is just simply bingo. You draw a card out of the bag and you match it to your picture on your bingo card until you fill it up and get bingo. But the idea is it's educational because on the other side, there's all this information about the, natural world, depending on which card you have. And so the idea is you would read these to your child all about the, the spider or the shooting star, or whatever card you drew. But really, you're playing bingo, and to sit there and read a paragraph of information on all sorts of a bajillion random things never really happens. So we end up just playing bingo, and there's really I would say there's no educational value to the game that is trying to be this very big educational tool. I would much rather watch a video on how shooting stars work with my kid and talk about shooting stars and let them explore if that's the area they want to go, learning more about, about space or whatever, then, or just have them make a bingo card that that they want to play because they like the game bingo. But it didn't really, it wasn't fun to play because it was kind of boring just playing bingo, and it didn't actually teach us anything other than maybe, I could see it making them curious on a certain topic and wanting to go further with it because they saw the picture. So I'm not saying that there's no value to it, but as an example of like, we get a lot more out of playing many of our board games that are not thought of as educational games because we're learning all these, logic skills or strategy or adding or, or Ticket to Ride, learning all the different locations of the United States, things like that aren't thought of necessarily as teaching something. We actually learn a lot more than something like this example of the bingo game. Yeah.
So that's all I got. There's one other thing. I haven't put it in the Google Doc yet. I'm gonna put the Google Doc in the chat. You should have got an email to that. That's kind of got a list of games that we like and a couple of websites and a couple of books. But one thing that I didn't make it in the document yet, but I will do that as soon as we get off. But the Bellingham Public Library has, I think it's like 16 different board games you can check out and get them for like, I think 3 weeks at a time. And like we've literally like checked out all of them there, and it's fun. I mean, it's just fun even if they're not great games, it's fun just to learn a new game. And one thing that we might want to do is maybe have some kind of game exchange at BFPP. Yeah, if there's interest in that, either maybe when we get back in person or even like we could do it something before then. Yeah, so are there any questions? I got a thumbs up for the game exchange.
Or more game ideas. I mean, I think the idea of this game schooling resource is that we could add to it and share the ones that we've all found to be really successful and fun. Yeah, Josephine.
Yeah, sorry, that's my daughter. I forgot to change it to me.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, no, it's good. I missed the beginning, and I apologize for that. And I don't know if this is on the list or not, but a game we really enjoy. It's not really a cooperative game, but there is a lot of bartering and bargaining. Is Bonanza, and it seems like we've got 3 kids of very different ages, and so it's like we can all play that together. And yeah, it's not quite cooperative. There are winners and losers, but it's fun because you kind of can trade and bargain too.
Awesome, thank you. I don't know about that game, but I'll put it on the list right now.
And it's spelled like BOHN because they're beans. You're trading like different beans and stuff. So yeah, Bonanza.
Bonanza.
The trading resources makes me think of we have a family favorite that I never would have thought of as anything but an adult game, Medici. But that is really actually where Evan learned most of his math, because you fill up your ship with resources that each have a point value, and then at the end of each round you add up all your points to see who gets the bonus of having the highest ship hold value. And he really, at a very early age, was really wanting to add those up and throughout the game to see if he was going to get the ship hold bonus. It's also, and there's bidding involved too, so you have to be thinking about the numbers that you have available to spend to bid on resources. So I don't know if you want to put that one, Josh, but that has been that was one of our favorite games before we had children, and I hesitated to bring it out when Josh suggested it because I was like, what? That's too old. Like, they're never going to want to play that. And it's one of their favorites. Charty Party. Cool.
Yeah, I don't know that one either.
And I've been inspired by Josh's idea to offer this game schooling session I'm exploring for my own school and my teachers in helping inspire students to create their own games around whatever it is that they're learning and exploring. So I'm inspired now to offer like a summer session to take this to the next level, which is kids making their own games out of things that they're, could be from a book that they read or something that they're learning about, to turn that into a game. And there's so many ways to make games out of the things that you're passionate about and your kids are passionate about, to teach others, to play, to explore together. There's so many different ways to take games and use games.
I'd love to hear if just what other games other people in the group love to play. We love to play games, and I'm always looking for new ideas. I think some of our favorites, or some of the ones that the kids pull out. So I have a first grader and a fourth grader. They often like to play Labyrinth, and King Domino? I think that's what it is. They also love Sleeping Queens, and we do play a lot of card games, golf, Uno. Trying to think what else. But yeah, I'd love to hear if other people have games that they love too, just because we always love to add more to our collection.
Yeah. All right. Did you get all those down, Josh, for the form? And I hope we can make the Google Doc editable so people can add their games in there. I was also going to add Planet is a really fun one, where you have like a planet and you're adding different climates based, and then you attract certain animals that would be that would do well in that environment. So you're trying to build your planet to sort of attract the animals that you get more. It's hard to explain, but you get more points if you get a certain animal and certain climate that you're after based on the card that you draw for the game. But you're building your planet as you go, and it's pretty cool. And one of the things that I did, especially around like birthdays and Hanukkah, because I love games and wanted to instill that love in my kids, like that's often like books and board games are typically the gifts that I get. I don't really get other stuff except Legos and building blocks. Those are like the only categories I ever look at. So I just went on Google and was like, best games for, you know, whatever age I was looking for. And then there are tons and tons of videos of people playing the games, reviewing the games. So without having to, you know, especially when we couldn't go into stores, like I know downtown, the Fairhaven store, you can go and actually play some of the games in the back room, which is really awesome. But now maybe we can't do that as much. So really getting to see what the game is like and how fun and valuable it's going to be. Now that we have so much access on the internet, it was a really helpful way for me to choose. And so every, you know, 6 months or so, I just go and I do a hunt and I find a couple new cool games. And for the most part, you know, I think I've only bought one dud in all the sets that I've bought. And it looked like such a promising game called Photosynthesis. It hasn't been a hit in our house, where you build the trees from seeds, and but mostly they've been really good. So there's a lot of resources just searching online. Although of course I want to encourage us all to share our best games. We have a vast resource here, you know, within us and with the BFPP community to share the games that have been great. But that's also a wonderful resource. Just hunting and looking at best games out there each year, but not necessarily searching for best educational games, just searching best games. They're all educational in their different ways.
May I share one?
Yeah, please.
I don't know if anybody knows this game. I'm not really sure where we got it, but my son broke it out a couple weeks ago, and it's got these cubes with letters on them, but well, I guess there's some vowels in there, but they're all scrambled up, and there's, I don't know, 12 or 13 or 14 of them, and you're supposed to try and make words out of them. It doesn't have to be the complete spelled out word. So, and you're trying to make as few words as possible. That's how you win, I guess. And it looked like, oh no, this is going to be reinforcing bad spelling habits or something. But actually, I'm big on spelling, and so I was a little skeptical, but we played it and it was really fun. And we couldn't believe how many words our son was coming up with. Like, I don't even know you knew that word, you know? And he may not always exactly get that, you know, okay, X isn't in that word. It has a K or something, but pretty close. But then what I've done is afterwards, we can look up some of the words that he wrote down and look them up in the dictionary to see how it's spelled. But it really actually has been very fun. So that's a good one. Plexed.
Yeah, thank you. I put it on the list.
Okay.
Yeah, I think classics are really great. There was someone who couldn't make it and wrote me kind of a list of all their favorite games, and there was like Boggle and Scrabble, and like, yeah, I think classics are classics for a reason. There's you know, like, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, except for Monopoly. It's terrible. I have to tell the Monopoly story. So Monopoly was apparently, there was two games, and Monopoly was created as like an example of capitalism, and it was designed to demonstrate how terrible capitalism was. And so that, and there was another game that was like, I don't know, socialism or something, and like that one, no one really caught on to it, but Monopoly stuck, and so like now we're stuck with it. But they actually, at the library, they have I think it's like Lindonopoly. It's based on like city, like streets in Linden or something. Yeah, I haven't actually gotten it, but I think it's hilarious that it exists.
Josh, I'm still here, but I lost my picture.
We can still see you.
Okay, well, Monopoly actually came out in the 1930s, which was a depression time, and people enjoyed playing it because they could feel rich with their play money. But
That's interesting.
And that's when it became very popular. Made people feel good. we would shorten the game sometimes that just will play for a half hour and whoever has the most money wins.
Yeah, Crystal, go ahead.
Because it's basically a 2.5 hour game if you play it from start to finish.
Or all night long if you're me. But and Crystal, go ahead.
There is a much shorter card game version of Monopoly called Monopoly Deal. I don't know if anybody's ever played that. My husband used to work in a board game store, and so we have a ridiculous amount of games in the house. That one is one that we just got recently, though, and it's nice because it still keeps the features of Monopoly that I enjoy, like the parts where you're trying to collect sets of things, which is really useful for mathematical reasoning, and then also just the number sense of having to buy things. But it's so much faster and really streamlines the rule set quite a bit. So if you're kind of a fan of the basic idea of Monopoly, but the actual gameplay is overwhelming, that's a good one to pick up, and it's cheap because it's just a small deck of cards. And then a couple of our other favorites, Minecraft Builders and Biomes is really great if you have a Minecraft obsessed kid, but you want them to have a little bit less screen time. It borrows, some of the mechanics from Minecraft, but in a different way to adapt to a tabletop environment. But it's usually an easy sell because it's like, oh, I want to play Minecraft. Oh, well, you're done with your screen time for today, but let's play Builders and Biomes. And so it's fun. And then the other one that we play a lot is Evolution. Is really fun too. It's got kind of animal traits and adaptations, and it's a cool way to talk about that and play with those ideas, but in a more fun context. So those are some ones that are definitely high on our list.
About 10, 15 minutes.
I'll be here. Yeah, and Marilyn is going to play with it.
And it's on the list, but I have to give a shout out to Mad Libs because from my own childhood experience, I only got an A in English because I was a good writer. When I would get A's on all the literature and stuff, but I would like flunk out on the grammar test, but use all my extra credit points to save myself. Grammar did not make sense. The terms adverb and adjective did not make sense. And it was Mad Libs that finally it clicked. Like I got it through playing a lot of Mad Libs. So shout out for that one.
And then somebody mentioned making sets. And so the game Set that's one of my favorite games. It's super simple, but it's like, it's something is really, you have to try like make groups of different shapes and stuff. But like sometimes I'll look at stuff and like I won't see it, but one of my kids will see like a set and it's just like, it's like, whoa, awesome, good job. Yeah.
Josephine, I think you had a.
Oh yeah, two like other like fun games that seem to work really well for a lot of different ages are Verse, which is like a rap battle game. It's a set of cards, and you get these topics, and you have to like within a small amount of time put together a rap about it, and then somebody is a judge, and it's fun. And Super Fight is another one where you have like, it's another card one where you have to battle out these two in a debate format, like who's better. You get these weird cards with different abilities, and then you have to and somebody decides who debated it out better than the other. Anyway.
Like the Pope, which anything it touches can turn into hummus.
Yeah.
That one was strange.
It seemed like there was some good excitement about a game swap kind of resource. I don't know, we can just do that. Like we can start with the people that are in, that were registered for this. I don't know exactly like how it would work, but yeah, maybe I'll kind of put out an email, like people can express interest in that and we can figure something out, because I think it would be cool to do that. I think there's something just about having a new game. It's exciting to just try new things. Yeah.